What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new edition of Touchdown Texas. I'm flying solo today. I'm your host, Shiva Patel, and thank you so much, everybody, for joining this episode. So, we have a lot to talk about today because a lot has been going on the 40 acres. Of course, we know the men's and women's basketball team is Sweet 16 bound, so they're going to be playing the games this weekend. And then it is week two of spring practice for the Texas football team after having a week off for spring break. So a lot to talk about. This is your place to be. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe on our social media channels at touchdown_Texas, and be sure to like, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much, everybody that is playing our bracket game. We are going to announce the winners soon. But again, this is very tight right now, and still, as a Sweet 16 is happening, going to happen in just a couple of days. So a lot of exciting things going on. I want to start with the basketball teams first. So the men's and women's basketball team are playing in the Sweet 16. The women's team beat Missouri State and Oregon, and they play Kentucky on Saturday. And then the men's team, there was some question marks whether they would even make the tournament after losing the last game of the regular season at home to the Oklahoma Sooners, and then losing in the SEC tournament in Nashville to Ole Miss, but they ended up making the tournament, and they were in the first four in Dayton, and they won a very close game against NC State. And then they had to fly all the way to Portland, and they beat the sixth seed BYU, who's going to have the presumptive number one pick in the draft, AJ DeBonsa. Then they had to play the number three seeded Gonzaga Bulldogs, and they're a very good team, winning the West Coast Conference tournament. And the Longhorns took care of business and beat the Gonzaga Bulldogs. So now they're playing Purdue tomorrow night, as we're recording on Wednesday afternoon, against the Purdue Boilermakers. So that should be a very interesting game. And I'm very happy for this Texas team because this is the first time in history that a first year Texas head coach, Sean Miller, has been able to make the Sweet 16 in his first year on the job. And I'm just impressed because he has called out Jordan Pope the last, couple months of the season, and Jordan Pope has made big shots. And the NCAA tournament is all about guard play. So Trayvon Mark, who had the game-winning shot against NC State, he's been unbelievable. Jordan Pope has been hitting big shots. Swain, he's not been having high impact scoring wise, but he's attacking the basket and doing work, off the dribble. So I really like that. Titus, Big V, has been dominating down low, drawing a lot of fouls, getting to the free throw line, not fouling as much as he was earlier this season, and also getting very key rebounds and playing tight defense. Also, they've been getting a lot of bench points as well. Nick Cody, Shandal Weaver have really stepped up. So this team is playing their best basketball at the right time. And I just love the up and down pace that they play with. They're a really good offensive team. They can score it on all three levels, from three-pointer, the mid-range, driving to the basket. They have a variety of really talented players. They're not playing like an 11 seed. They are, the talent-wise, they should be better than that, but they just had a really rough end to the season. That's why they ended up being 11 seed and having to play in Dayton. So this matchup coming up tomorrow night against the Purdue Boilermakers. Purdue Boilermakers won the Big Ten tournament, having beaten the number one or two team in the country in Michigan. This is going to be a really tough matchup because Purdue is really good on the offensive end of the floor. They could stretch out the floor. They have good bigs inside with Trey Coughlin-Red and Clough, and they have good guards. Braden Smith breaking the assist record. He's a really good four-year point guard, as well as Fletcher Loyer. They have Cox, who can really shoot it. But the Longhorns, if they can take advantage of Purdue defensively, because they're not the strongest defensive team, they need to force Purdue to commit turnovers. Look for Dalen Swain to have a much bigger impact, as get 20 plus points. Titus needs to get Purdue's bigs in foul trouble. It's going to be a tough matchup, but we said the same thing against Gonzaga. So, this team is playing with a lot of belief, and I think that they can carry that forward into this game against Purdue. And the key is matching Purdue's energy, and then they need to make shots from three-point range, and I think they can. And it's going to be a great matchup. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. Texas is the only double-digit seed left in the NCAA tournament as an 11 seed. all the pressure is on Purdue because they're the favorite to win the game and go far, advance to the Elite Eight. So they're kind of playing with house money. Sean Miller is a very experienced coach. He's been here before, he's been in multiple Sweet 16s, multiple Elite Eights. I think that they can, if they can get Purdue down the stretch, they just need to out execute them. And we have clutch players. Marcus clutch. Jordan Pope is clutch. Volker Titus, he needs to make his free throws. That if he gets fouled, and then Swade can also hit tough shots. But right now, I'm going to give the edge to Purdue, but I can definitely see the Longhorns winning. And of course, like I said, the women's team is also going to be playing on Saturday. They're going to be playing against Kentucky. The women's team, of course, as a number one seed, was expected to make it to the Sweet 16. Madison Booker, what a great final game she had this year at the Moody Center, 40 points. She is a walking bucket, one of the best players in the entire country. She could score from all three levels of the floor. Vic Schaefer just has a very complete team that defends. They're tough-nosed. They play hard. And, shooting is a little bit of a concern because they're not the best three-point shooting team, but they overall get it done. And I look for them to advance to the Elite Eight. So that is basketball. And before we move forward, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel at touchdown_Texas. We have a lot more content coming up for you as this is the second week of spring practice. We're about to talk about that. We're going to be going by position breakdown of the offense and the defense. And of course, Texas had their pro day yesterday in Austin, Texas. So we're going to be talking about the NFL draft picks, our draft prospects for Texas, where they might go in the draft. So this is the channel. We're going to be pumping out content week after week. So be sure to stay tuned and get your notifications on and like and subscribe to our channel. So now for spring practice. So I'm going to be talking about first on offense. I'm going to be talking about the position that I think is the most concerning right now. That doesn't mean that they're going to be a concern when the regular season starts in August. It's only March. But right now, as we're talking in spring ball with this spring game coming up April 18th, for me, the biggest concern is the offensive line. And maybe I'm still traumatized after last year because we had such high hopes for this offensive line. DJ Campbell, Trevor Gooseby, etc., and they just disappointed. I think the staff underestimated how ready the young guys were going to be ready to plug and play, like a Brandon Baker, etc. But they really went in the portal this year for this season, and I really like that. They got Dylan Skoworski, transfer from Oregon State, Melvin Saini, who was a crown jewel of our portal class, from Wake Forest, originally from Canada. Then we also got some other, pretty good players. Lawrence Seymour, he started his career at Miami. He transferred to Western Kentucky. He got his 6-year eligibility waiver, and he's going to be officially be ready to suit up this fall. So the reason I have it as a concern, because even though I believe the talent level is going to be higher than last year, it's just about the cohesiveness. How quickly can they gel together? That's going to be the key. But the good news is you have three starters actually coming back. Connor Robertson at center, Trevor Gooseby at left tackle, and then they're moving Brandon Baker, who started as a sophomore last year, from right tackle to right guard. So from left to right, it's going to be Trevor Gooseby at left tackle. Dylan Skoworski most likely is going to win the left guard position. Connor Robertson, like I said, is going to be the center. And then right guard is going to be Brandon Baker. And then your right tackle is going to be Melvin Saini. So there's more talent on this offensive line. I believe they're much more bigger and much more physical. But we saw last year, how quickly can they figure out their technique? Can they get on the same page and protect Arch Manning, which is going to be his last year on the 40 acres? That's something that I'm looking for. That I really like, overall, like the scheme fits that the portal players that we got, coming in. But it's just going to be a matter of fact of these guys just needing to prove themselves. I do like the depth, by the way. We do have some very talented young players in the works waiting for their turn. For example, like a Jaden Chapman, who got injured last year, otherwise he would have played more. John Turntine, the five-star freshman from North Crowley in Texas. He's a guy in waiting. So we have some talented players, but it's just a matter of, creating that depth. Jackson Christian, he's made some noise. Nicholas Robertson as a true freshman, Devin Coleman, Andre Kojo. But it's just a matter of just staying healthy, and this offensive line needs to do a better job of protecting Arch Manning because that was our downfall in the Florida loss. Even you can say the Ohio State game. Ohio State got a lot more pressure, than we thought they were going to get in those couple of losses. So let's see how that goes. That is my position of concern. But let's go back on the positive now. Position I am most excited about has to be wide receiver. Where else? I know you can say running back with the Hollywood Smothers, and Malik Brown, and of course Derek Cooper, the five-star freshman coming in. But I have to go with wide receiver because we got the crown jewel, the number one prospect in the portal class, Cam Coleman. It's still, I have to pinch myself sometimes because I still can't believe he's actually a Texas Longhorn and he's participating on the 40 acres in spring practice. This guy is a beast. Like, he was putting up numbers on an Auburn team that was a turnstile, had a bunch of Jags at quarterback. He was still put up over 700 yards and 5 touchdowns last year. He balled out against Oklahoma. He balled out against A&M. Like, he is such a high quality player. And now that he's actually on a good team, I believe he's on the level of Jeremiah Smith. It's just now he just needs to prove himself on the big stage and really showcase his skills. He's a big 6'4" guy. He runs really good routes. He has strong hands, great body control. When he's running, it seems like he's gliding. He uses his physicality. He wins jump balls. Like, he is just the all-around wide receiver that you look for as the number one guy. But it's just not him. Of course, we returned Ryan Wingo, who some people would say he had a down sophomore year. I wouldn't say that because he had some really good moments. This catch we're showing against A&M where he contorted his body on the first, or I believe it was on the second play actually of Mississippi State. He took a screen pass, ran it 80 yards. He did struggle with drops last year, but it's just more of a concentration thing. He's getting a lot better at running routes, and he is continuing to build a rapport and a chemistry with Arch Manning. You could see at times Arch Manning was forcing it too much to Ryan Wingo, but I think because he knows he's a number one caliber guy. So he is the 1B to the Cam Coleman's 1A. He looked for him to have a huge junior year because he is draft eligible and he is going to make some noise because he's a size, he has the athleticism, he has a hands despite the drop issues, he has the speed. He's also a wide receiver that can be a franchise type of guy. But it's just not those two guys. We're very talented because Cam Coleman's most likely going to start at the X, Ryan Wingo's going to start at the Z, and then we had the slot. How can you forget about Emmett Mosley, who didn't even play at the start of last year because he was injured, the transfer from Stanford? He's also draft eligible. We saw when he came back in the Florida game, it made a difference. He's also a guy that can make a big impact on this team. He can also be a number one in a lot of different teams, but he's an unselfish guy. He's one of the hardest working guys in the wide receiver room. He's also a very polished wide receiver who's continuing to get better and better with every rep. At Stanford, they did not throw the ball a lot in his freshman year, but he still was making a great impact last year. I like the way that he was able to fit in with this Texas team. But the thing is, with Cam Coleman getting a lot of the best cornerback attention from the opposing team, as maybe Ryan Wingo too, Emmett Mosley is going to be the guy that's going to either be match up on a linebacker or, maybe their opposing team star position or number 3 cornerback. So he's going to be able to beast in the slot because you have two guys that can run vertical routes in Coleman and Wingo. But Arch Manning can just dump it underneath to Emmett Mosley, who also has crazy athleticism, crazy skill, can make people miss. It can get a lot of first down. So he is going to do work in the slot, but he can also run deep too. But that's what he's going to do most of his work, in my opinion, as well as the tight end. So And then also, how can you forget about the true freshman? He's Houston area's one of the most productive players in the history of Houston high school football, Jermaine Bishop. I'm not saying he's going to be this type of player, but he has the potential to be a Malachi Tony. It may not be in year one like Malachi Tony was, but this guy is a human joystick. He has quick, sudden burst. He's make you miss ability. He can absolutely fly. He's a gadget type of wide receiver that you could throw screens to. You can just it's just important just to get the ball in his hands as many times as you can and let him go to work. And he's the guy that's impressed since he's come in, enrolled in school in January. And he's look for him to get the ball and see the field because, as Sark said one time, he likes touchdown makers. And this guy adds another dimension to the Texas offense that can make it a nightmare for defenses to stop. So look for Jermaine Bishop to also get some run as well. Maybe Ryan Niblett, who's he was more of a punt returner, kick returner last year. He may also play. Maybe Michael Terry, whether they want to keep him at running back full time or let him be in the wide receiver room. This wide receiver room is absolutely stacked. And of course, I want to give an honorable mention to the quarterback position because of course I did not want to give the obvious and just say the quarterback position, but that room is going to be really, really good too. But I just wanted to touch on other groups. Arch Manning, of course, we know he got better and better as the season went on. He's going to have a huge senior year. He's been putting in work in the weight room, working on his mechanics, getting rapport with his wide receivers. But I want to talk about KJ Lacey. KJ Lacey is a redshirt freshman from Saraland, Alabama, who redshirted last year. He apparently is a gamer. He's been doing a lot of work in spring practice. He's a gym rat, constantly watching film, getting better, working with Sark and Coach AJ Milwee, the quarterback's coach, improving his skill. He is going to be a very high quality backup quarterback. Knock on wood, we don't need him, and he only plays mop-up duty. But in the case Arch Manning goes down, KJ Lacey is going to be a guy that you can just feel as good about running an offense, operating the offense as Arch Manning. He's the guy guys gravitate to. He can make every single throw on the field. He has great arm strength. He's not the biggest guy in the world. He's more of a pocket passer guy than a run, but he can maneuver the pocket really well. Really puts a lot of great zip on the ball and he's really good at getting it to the playmaker. So I feel really good about the quarterback position. Also, we got MJ Morris, like a Matthew Caldwell from last year, just as an insurance type of guy. But I think the quarterback position, you should feel good about this year as much as you did last year. That room, they could continue to push each other, and they have a lot of high quality athletes in that room. And as a quarterback, you saw, in college football, you can never have too many guys. And Texas, I think, has done a really good job of recruiting the quarterback position and developing them. So now let's move on to defense. So let's talk about the position that I am most concerned about. So Will Muschamp, of course, is now the new DC as he's reuniting back in Austin after having being in there early 2000s after they got rid of Pete Kokowski. I would have to say right now my position of concern, again, just right now as we're talking about in March, it could change, so it has to be the quarterback position. I'm only saying this because we lost starters Michael Taft, Malik Muhammad, Jalen Gilbo, all going to be NFL players, by the way. We do bring back Grayson Littleton, who played the star position as a true freshman, one of the lower rated guys in the class, came in and absolutely balled out and started from game one against Ohio State. But the question is with him, are they going to keep him at the star position or they're going to move him to one of the cornerback positions? That is the biggest storyline that I'm looking for in the secondary as we go through spring practice. And I want to see how they line up in the spring game on March 18th. But besides Grayson Littleton, Kobe Black, who came along last year, he didn't play a lot last year, but he played really well against A&M. He had an interception. He played pretty well against Michigan. That's going to be, see how he continues to take that jump from sophomore to junior year. Cade Phillips, who, by the way, I think is going to be a really good superstar player for the Longhorns. But he's still young. He's only going to be a true sophomore. But he played really well against Michigan as well. And towards the end of the season, he was just too good for the Longhorns to keep off the field. So those two guys, most likely Cade Phillips is going to be one of the starting cornerbacks. And then the second cornerback's either going to be whether they move Grayson Littleton, to that second position. Maybe Warren Roberson can, compete for that starting role. But then the Rutgers transfer, Bo Masco. He was an underrated guy that the Longhorns picked up in the portal, and he apparently has come in, put his head down, worked, and he is a playmaker. He's always around the ball. He has really good instincts. He can get his hands on the ball, deflect it. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he can really jam wide receivers and make life difficult. He's really sticky in coverage, which is something Sark and company look for. So he right now is if he right now is my odds-on favorite to win at least one of the cornerback battles, and then Cade Phillips most likely is going to win the second one, and then they're going to keep Grayson Littleton at the star position. But the good news is that one of those guys gets injured, all three of those guys are interchangeable, and then you can bring in, Kobe Black, and then you can bring in a Warren Roberson. But the only reason this is my concern is because Cade Phillips is a young player going from freshman to sophomore year. Bo Masco is still a transfer. Let's see. He played in the Big Ten, a good conference, but the SEC is another level with really high quality athletes. Let's see how he is able to translate and then what they do with Grayson Littleton. That is my only concern on defense, and I think this concern can become a strength really quickly. But as right now in March, I would have to say this is a position that I'm maybe not concerned with. Concerned may not be the right word, but a position that I'm watching very closely as the Longhorns progress through spring practice. Let's go down to the strength of, I believe, of defense. I could pick many positions. I could have picked linebacker because Ty Anthony Smith, Rasheed Biles, etc. Or I could have picked defensive tackle with Hero Canu and Ian Graffard and Josiah Sharma and Justice Terry. But I'm going to go with the edge rusher position because the best edge rusher in the country plays that position, and that is Colin Simmons, who, if he stays healthy and has a very productive year like he did last year, he will be a top 5 to 10 pick in the NFL draft. Can you believe it? Colin Simmons is going to be a junior. I feel like he just stepped on campus, but he has made his mark on the team. He's a very focused kid that continues to work on his craft. He loves football. He's always in the lab looking for ways to improve. And at the beginning, his knock was run defense because he's a really good pass rusher, but he's really got better at his run defense, run support. I see that as not a concern for him anymore. And then the other kind of quote unquote weakness is that he has such a quick first step that he would take himself out of plays. Well, he has become much more measured in that approach, still using his quick first step to beat the offensive tackle, but also not taking himself out of plays and always around the ball and wrapping up and tackling. He's been really good at wrapping up and tackling, both on run support and then when he gets his hands on the quarterback. He is just continuing to improve, and every single day, every single game last year, he has a great motor, great love for the game. He runs sideline to sideline. He's working on his pass rush moves, which I think you're going to see because Lyle and Clark is one of the best pass rushing coaches in the country. So he's been really working on Colin Simmons with that. Look for him to have 11 plus sacks this year, even with all the attention he's going to get, because we have so many other guys besides Colin Simmons where you cannot just put all your eggs in defending him. Like, we have some crazy depth in this, the edge rushing position. And it's just absolutely crazy how well Texas is recruited. What about Lance Jackson, who was a true freshman last year, also from Texas, Texarkana? Every time he played, he would make some kind of impact. He played more and more as the season went on. He's a big and physical kid who continued to get stronger. He is going to get at least, I think he's going to at least get 5 to 6, maybe 7 sacks this year. He's another guy that can beat one-on-one coverage, and he can make an impact and is always around the ball. So I'm really excited for Lance Jackson. He's going to play really well. Justice Terry, they may play him at the defensive end position as he continues to gain weight before they move him to nose tackle. But I think he's going to make some noise this year as a sophomore because he's going to play a lot more and get a lot more reps. We know what Colton Vasek, can do when he's actually healthy. So hopefully he gets healthy, going into his senior season. I think he's all you see him always around the ball, creating havoc on the quarterbacks. Zena Umeluzelu, who also had an underrated year at edge rusher position. He played a lot as the year went on, and he was making an impact in his limited reps last year. So this group is not only fast, but they're physical, they're big, they're strong, they can wrap up the tacklers, so that's really impressive. And even though, they may not have the production from last year, they have the length, they have the burst, they have the upside to take a really big developmental leap. And I believe Texas's pass rush is going to be absolutely scary. And they're going to take a lot of pressure off the secondary because the secondary may still be figuring out the rotations and their coverage and their schemes early in the season, but these quarterbacks are just going to have no time because the pass rush is just going to be in their face, and they're going to take a lot of pressure off the secondary. So I'm really excited for this pass rush. It was hard to pick a position that I think is the best, but the pass rush has to be my favorite position and the position that I'm most excited about as we are talking right now towards the end of March in only the second week of spring practice. Well, again, thank you so much, everybody, for watching this episode of Touchdown Texas. We talked about the men's and women's team making it both to the Sweet 16. Also, we talked about the offensive position that I'm most excited about, the position that I'm right now in March concerned about, as well as the defense position I'm most excited about, the most concerned about. The next couple of episodes, we have a lot more content coming for you. We're going to be doing a position-by-position breakdown of the offense and the defense, as well as talking more hoops as hopefully, the men's and women's team continue to advance. And of course, we know Texas Longhorns had their pro day yesterday, so we're going to be talking about the draft prospects on the team, where we think they're going to go, and good positional fits they have with different teams as we're about 1 month away from the NFL draft. So this is a really excited time. And of course, we talk about spring practice news and notes as this is the start of week 2 in spring practice. But again, thank you so much again for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe to our social media channels at touchdown_Texas. Be sure to get your notifications and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and be sure to also follow us on TikTok and Instagram. Shivam, thank you again so much. This is Shivam Patel signing off.